We serve a good and a great God, and thank God for watching over you this week, bringing you to the house of the Lord. As you know, we are looking at wisdom, and for the past several weeks, I've been teaching on wisdom, and today I'm doing part 4 of my series on wisdom. We all need wisdom. We need wisdom to build our lives. We need wisdom to construct our marriages. We need wisdom to make wise choices. And we need wisdom to fit ourselves into the plan and the purposes of God. And today we're going to cover some aspects of wisdom as it relates with our behavior. Please start with me in the book of Proverbs, chapter 24 and verse. Please start with me in the book of Proverbs, chapter 24 and verse 30 to 34. Proverbs 24, 30 to 34. It's a very interesting passage. I'm sure you've read it before. And I have alluded to it several times. And it reads, I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. Rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. The wise man, or the person in the Proverbs, is telling us about an observation they made and the lessons they learned. There are 4 things I just want to bring to your attention from this verse. The first one is in verse 30. I went by the field of the lazy man. I want you to note the phrase, I went by. I went by. To go by a place is to have a casual introduction. That is when you just see something. And so the person in question says he was just probably taking a stroll or walking in town casually, and he's introduced to something. Now, normally wisdom doesn't come when we sit to cram and learn and squeeze our faces to really think deeply. Wisdom normally comes through casual introductions, something you just see by the wayside, something that has just brought your attention, something you read about. So the wise man says, I went by, and that is casual introduction. Went by the field of the lazy man. The second thing I want you to note is in verse 32, he says, I saw it. I saw it. He didn't just go by, but he says, I saw it. That means he was a keen observer. This is keen observation. This is when you pay attention to something. To learn wisdom, you have to move from casual introduction to keen observation. From casual introduction to keen observation. When I saw it, I saw it. The third thing that the wise man talks about, he says, I considered it well. That is when you have a deeper examination. This is when you deeply consider something. So there is casual observation or introduction, then you keenly observe it, then you deeply examine it. Then the fourth thing he said, I received instruction. That is personal application. This is when you apply what you are seeing to yourself. Anytime you hear of something, maybe you hear that somebody's marriage has failed. Their marriage has failed. What lessons are you going to apply to yourself so yours does not fail? Yes, somebody lost their business. What are the lessons to draw? Yes, you hear that something has happened to somebody. What are the lessons to draw? Because the most important thing you want to do in life is not just to casually observe, but as you observe, to progress to the point where you can draw lessons from what you are seeing. It is the lessons that makes you wiser. Some people say that experience is the best teacher. And in a sense, there is some truth to that. But sometimes experience will not teach you anything, because experience can destroy you. And sometimes you never get the chance to learn the lesson of experience, because the experience itself will damage you. The best teacher is when you do what this person did, you go by the feel, because the experience itself will damage you. The best teacher is when you do what this person did, you go by the field of the person who has gone through an experience, and you learn the lessons. I don't want to go through what you have gone through, but I want to learn the lessons of what you have gone through, so I don't go through what you are going through. Don't seek to have the same experiences, especially the negative ones, of other people. You have to learn the lessons, receive instruction. Job chapter 11 verse 12, you don't need to turn to it, you can just write it down. It says, "For an empty-headed man will be wise when a wild donkey's colt is born a man." An empty-headed man will be wise when a wild donkey's colt is born a man. That's a very interesting proverb. It says that for somebody who is empty-headed, who doesn't really apply themselves to think to be wise, it will happen when a donkey gives birth to a human being. So in other words, when you don't apply your mind, it's impossible for you to be wise. It's impossible. You don't have to be empty-headed. You have to think. You have to ponder. You have to receive instruction. You have to be a keen observer in order to be wise. I'm going to talk about several things about the wise man. I hope I can go through all of that today. The first thing I want to look at is the heart of the wise man. The heart of the wise man. What kind of heart should a wise person have? The heart of the wise man. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 verse 2 says, "A wise man's heart is at his left." Now, in the Hebrew environment that the writers of the Bible lived in, the right hand always talked about something that is right, upright, virtuous. And the left talks about something that is crooked. You remember Jesus said that in the kingdom of heaven, those who are called to righteousness will go to the right hand, and the goats will go to the left. So in the Hebrew mind, left means crooked or wrong or sinful, and right means uprightness. So when the verse says that the right man, the wise man's heart is on his right, is not talking about biology. We know that biologically the heart is on the left, but the wise man's heart is on the right. It means that the wise man's heart is set in uprightness and virtue. That biologically the heart is on the left, but the wise man's heart is on the right. It means that the wise man's heart is set in uprightness and virtue. It's set in uprightness. The wise man has an upright and a virtuous heart, an honorable heart. So when the Bible talks about the heart, it talks about your spirit or your core personality, your core being. And the Bible says that the wise man, at the center of his being, at his heart, in his core personality, he is upright and he is virtuous. You cannot be crooked and be wise at the same time, according to the Bible. You can have the wisdom of this world, not the wisdom of God. The wisdom of God starts with a right heart. A right heart. The right wise man's heart is in his right hand, or at his right hand. Second thing about a wise man's heart is that it pours out deep things. It pours out deep things. Proverbs chapter 20 verse 5 says, counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding would draw it out. A wise person's heart is deep. Wise people have depth, they are not shallow. Wise people are able to dig deep into themselves, into their heart, even when they don't fully grasp something that is happening. From the depths of their being, they are able to draw. They are able to draw freshness, new ideas, new inspiration. The wise people are not shallow people. Wise people do not have top of the surface discussion. They always want to go below and find the real causes of what we are dealing with. The wise person's heart is like deep water. The third thing about the wise person's heart is that the wise person's heart is not overconfident. The wise person's heart is not overconfident. Proverbs chapter 28 verse 26 says, he who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely will be delivered. That phrase, trust in your own heart, means to be overconfident, to just believe in yourself and not consider your own weaknesses and the abilities of other people. If you look through the book of Proverbs, there is a lot of advice for people who are overconfident and wise in their own eyes. People who think very highly of themselves, people who believe that they are the best. Now, the Bible says if you're going to be wise, it starts from your heart. Your heart must be right. Your heart must be deep. But you don't have to be overconfident. You don't have to be proud and arrogant. Humility is a hallmark of wisdom. Wise people are humble of heart. They don't think of themselves better than other people. They know their own strengths, but they also know that other people have strength as well. If you're going to be a wise person, you have to check your heart. Is your heart in the right place? Is your heart lifted up? Are you overconfident, puffed up, haughty? Confident, puffed up, haughty? Is your heart deep? Are you able to go deep? Do you have the desire at the core of your being to go deep into matters? That is the heart of the wise man. Second thing we'll look at is the ear of the wise. The ear of the wise. The ear of the wise. What is a wise person's ear like? I would look at your neighbor's ear and see whether it's a wise person's ear. What does a wise person's ear look like? Well, the wise person's ear seeks for knowledge and understanding. The wise person's ear seeks for knowledge and understanding. Proverbs chapter 1 verse 5. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. Wise people open their ears to wisdom. They are learners. They learn from God. They learn from God's creation, and they learn from God's people. Those who have biblical knowledge know that in order to acquire more knowledge, they need to open their ears. They are able to open their ears. So, do you have a wise person's ear? Do you seek wisdom? When you turn on the television, are you seeking fun, entertainment, or you're seeking knowledge? When you turn on the radio, are you seeking fun, entertainment, or information? Knowledge. When you pick up a book, are you just seeking to laugh, or you want to learn wisdom? If you are the person whose ear is open to learning and to understanding and to knowledge, you have a wise ear. If you are not like that and learning makes you uncomfortable, you feel bored when people are talking about important things, then you don't have a wise ear. Because the wise person's ear is always itching for knowledge, itching for new information, itching for understanding. We'll attend a seminar, we'll attend a workshop, we'll go to a place and listen to wisdom speaking. If you don't have that, then you don't have a wise ear. Wise person's ear seeks for knowledge and understanding. Second thing about a wise person's ear is that they are able to handle correction. That hears the rebukes of life will abide among the wise. But he who disdains instruction despises his own soul, and he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. Wise people do not turn their ears away from correction. There are people who can handle correction. When they get corrected, they get angry. When they make a mistake and you correct them, they get upset. But a wise person is able to handle rebuke. Now, some of us have never been rebuked in our lives. Our parents never corrected us. And may I just encourage parents, making your children happy does not mean don't correct them. You have to correct them. You have to sometimes, making your children happy does not mean don't correct them. You have to correct them. You have to sometimes stop them from doing something. They are picking something that is wrong, stop them. They are making a wrong decision, stop them. They are eating too much, stop them. It's called rebuke. They use a bad word, stop them. They are fighting, the two of them are fighting at home, and one uses a bad word against the other brother. Stop them and correct them. A visitor comes to the house, they do something wrong, stop it. Because your children must be used to rebuke. Because when people don't get used to rebuke, when they grow up, they can't handle rebuke. And when you rebuke them, they're going to say, but my own father and mother didn't even rebuke me. And who are you to talk to me like that? It's because they are not used to rebuke. Throughout their lives, they were made to feel that everything they did was all right. The wise ear is open to rebuke. I know that rebuke is not always pleasant, but rebuke is good for the soul. It's good. It's good for somebody to sometimes tell you what you're doing is not right. It's good for somebody to tell you that you could have done it better. So there are people who have never been rebuked because they lived free. Lived free from childhood, lived free. They were on their own, they made their own decisions, and nobody took time to correct them. So they can't handle correction. And then there are those who were overcorrected. Constantly being insulted, overcorrected. Constantly being insulted, constantly being rebuked, constantly. Now, they also sometimes grow up not wanting to be rebuked because they've had enough for a lifetime. They were rebuked too much when they were children, and now they're grown and they say, I'm my own man and you can't tell me what to do. Two extremes, but both do not make the ear open to rebuke. If you are a wise person, hold your ear. Hold your ear if you're a wise person. And say, I'm ready to be rebuked. And when you are rebuked, don't get angry. Don't leave an office because you are rebuked. Don't leave a church because you are rebuked. Don't abandon your friend because he rebuked you. Because if you do that, you are just showing that you are not wise. Because a wise person's ear, all the time, they can also handle it when they are corrected. The ear of the wise is able to handle correction. The third thing about the ear of the wise person is that they diligently weigh what they hear. The wise ear diligently weighs what is heard. Proverbs 18 verse 13. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. Wise people do not just hear one side of a story and draw conclusions. Wise people do not live on hearsay. Now, if you've lived on this planet for a long time, then you know that sometimes just hearing one side of a story is not enough. As a matter of fact, all the time. Because until you hear the other side, you cannot draw a conclusion. So wise people do not just jump on hearsay. They don't act on hearsay. They don't make decisions on hearsay. If somebody comes to tell you that somebody hates you, somebody dislikes you, somebody wants to destroy you, don't go trying to destroy them, because you haven't heard them. You have to hear it properly. You have to take time and weigh the matter and properly consider it before you draw conclusion. It is a mark of wisdom not to act based on hearsay. The wise person's ear seeks for wisdom and knowledge. The wise person's ear weighs what it hears. The wise person's ear is able to handle correction. When you're rebuked, you don't get hurt. You don't get hurt. You don't get offended. You don't get quiet. Only children do that. Children do that. When they're doing something, you rebuke them. They become sullen, quiet. Sometimes they're going to hide in a corner. They won't talk for a long while. That's children. But I suppose none of us here is a child. Some of you have quit your job because you were rebuked. You quit your job because somebody corrected you and you couldn't handle it. The wise person's ear can handle rebuke. Okay, so we've talked about the heart of the wise person. We've talked about the ear of the wise person. Now let's talk about the lip of the wise person. The lip of the wise person. Now when we talk about the lip, we're not just talking about how nice your lips look like, but we're talking about what you say. The lip of the wise. When you sit to a wise person and they speak, what they say will be intelligent. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 21 says, the wise in heart will be called prudent, and the sweetness of the lips increases learning. Wise people speak words that helps people to be more knowledgeable. When they speak, it increases learning. They increase our learning. And there are those who speak and diminish learning. So when you leave their presence, you are more ignorant after talking to them than before. Because there is no knowledge, there is no wisdom, there's no increase of knowledge, there's nothing that has enriched your life. But the wise person speaks and increases knowledge. They add to the conversation. They add to understanding. They make understanding better and increases knowledge. They add to the conversation. They add to understanding. They make understanding better. If you are a wise person, you must make intelligent contribution. Proverbs 15 verse 7 says, the lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the fool does not do so. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge. So ask yourself, does my lip disperse knowledge? When I talk, am I sharing knowledge? I'm sharing gossip. What do I share? When I speak, do I increase knowledge? Do I make people better? Do I bring more enlightenment to the subject and the discussion? The wise man's lips will increase learning. And that's very important, especially for us who are believers. Our lips must increase learning. And if what you're going to say will not increase learning, I think it's wise enough just to keep quiet. If you are at a meeting and you want to make a contribution, make sure that what you speak will take the meeting forward. It will not take the meeting backwards, because a wise person's lips increases knowledge. You need to pray and say, Lord, teach me to say wise things. Have you ever been in a meeting where you made a contribution and you just knew what you said was not sensible? Have you been there before? It's happened to me a few times. I mean, you said something and you yourself, nobody said anything, but after you finished talking, you just know that what I said was not sensible. You were not wise, sometimes because your mind was not there. You know, there's something going on, they're discussing a subject, and it will increase knowledge. Anytime you sit at a meeting, let people know that a woman of wisdom is here, a man of wisdom is sitting here, because whatever you say is going to increase knowledge. The lips of the wise person carefully manages information. Carefully manages information. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 2 says, the tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools pours out foolishness. I think I won't read the second part because it has too many things there. So I'll just focus on the first part. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge wisely. The wise person uses information rightly. Rightly. He does not use information wrongly. And that's very important. Because when you're a wise person, your lips must use knowledge rightly. So what does that mean? It means that when you're a wise person, you're going to have access to a lot of information, and sometimes you have information and knowledge by virtue of what you do. And when you have that information, the wise person's lips will use that information wisely. For example, I am a pastor. Part of my job is that people talk to me. When you're a pastor, people talk to you. And normally when people talk to a pastor, and after some time, they just pour out their hearts. People talk to me. When you're a pastor, people talk to you. And normally when people talk to a pastor, and after some time, they just pour out their hearts. They talk about what they really feel. They talk about what is disturbing them. They talk about what they fear. They talk about what they hope. They talk about what they want to achieve. Now, my assumption as a pastor, it's an assumption I make, that anytime somebody talks to me, whatever they are saying to me is confidential. Even if they don't say it's confidential, as far as I know, once they sit in front of me and speak, it's confidential. Because they're going to give me information, knowledge, and my lips must use that knowledge rightly. So if a man is having problems with his wife and he comes and complains about the wife, and I'm talking to the wife about what the husband said, what he boldly, my wife, pastor, my wife is not beautiful. Look the way she walks, she's not beautiful. I don't like her. Now, when I'm using that knowledge, my lips must not say, your husband says you are not beautiful. And when he sees you, he is angry. Because the lips of the wise must rightly manage that knowledge. I have the knowledge, but my lips must rightly manage it. So the Bible says that the lips of the wise man rightly manages knowledge. Rightly. And it's not just the pastor. It is every one of us. There is some knowledge that comes to us. I mean, if you have two friends, and one complains bitterly about the other one, and friends do that. And sometimes they complain bitterly because at that time they were just frustrated. And they spoke the words of a frustrated person. Now, that knowledge must be managed well. Because you don't go and talk to the other person and say, hey, do you know what happened yesterday? The way he insulted you. He insulted you, Papa. I can't even tell you all. But then you tell. Now, it's knowledge you have, but when you're wise, your lips must manage that. The way you use knowledge. When you get privileged information. Privileged information is information you wouldn't have had except you had a privileged access. Position, something like that. It gives you knowledge, but you must manage that knowledge well. A position, something like that. It gives you knowledge, but you must manage that knowledge well. A doctor or a nurse will have access to knowledge about people, but their lips must manage that knowledge. You don't have maybe a prominent person come to your hospital and then afterwards you tell everybody, hey, this man, do you know his disease? No, you have the knowledge, but your lips must manage it properly, rightly. If you have the opportunity to sit at an important meeting, your lips must manage the knowledge well. You don't leave a board meeting and go and tell everybody what transpired at a board meeting. You know, there are some people whose mouths, like we say in Ghana, they have okra mouths. Their mouth is very slippery. Their mouth is very slippery. They just can't handle knowledge. And sometimes these days I hear people sit in confidential meetings and they are recording the meeting. It is not wise to sit in a confidential meeting and record it without the other parties knowing. It is not ethical. It is not the way of wisdom, it's the way of the crooked. If you're going to record somebody, you ask their permission and make them aware they are being recorded. You don't record them when they are not aware. And some of you sit in confidential meetings and record people. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly. Sometimes people sit at meetings and whilst the meeting is going on, they're texting all the confidential information. Texting, tweeting. Now that does not mean concealing crime. And we know that some people's professions like journalists require that they get information and tell us all about it. But you are not a journalist. You are not a journalist. Yours is, I'm talking about private relationship with people, confidential relationships with people. The lips of the right wise person rightly manages the knowledge that they have. Third, the lip of the wise man does not speak rashly. Does not speak rashly. Proverbs 10:19. In the multitude of words, sin is not lacking. But he who restrains his lips is wise. A wise person measures what they say. They practice the art of using a few words to say a lot. They avoid the temptation to respond a few words to say a lot. They avoid the temptation to respond to everything that they hear. A wise person restrains his words. Now, I know that some people are outgoing and they are not quiet. And we're not all supposed to be quiet. Some people are very outgoing and wherever they are, they talk and they make us all happy. I mean, if the whole world was like quiet people like me, I think you will all sit at a meeting, we'll fold our legs and wait for 1 hour and say, the meeting is over, let's go home. No discussion. You sit at a party and nobody talks. There are some people who are the life of a party. They make everybody happy. They make everybody come out of their shells. And they talk and they joke and they express themselves easily. I'm not saying that if that is your personality, I'm not saying that if that is your personality, all of a sudden decide to be quiet. People will suspect you. They'll think that something's wrong with you. So it's all right to express your outgoing personality, if that's your personality. And if you are also quiet, it's all right to express it. So the question is, if you are outgoing and you speak a lot, how do you restrain your words? Well, there are a few things I'll suggest to you. First, you can learn to pause when you are speaking. Don't talk. Pause. Learn to break what you say so there will be pause. The important thing about pause is that it helps you to think. God gave man 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you must talk half of what you hear. You must hear more, talk less. Now, if you're talking twice beyond what you hear, you get into trouble. You may be outgoing, but you can learn to pause when you speak. You have to discipline yourself not to jump to conclusions after hearing only one side. You have to allow other people the opportunity to also speak. Time yourself. You are at a place, you are talking, and you've had the floor for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, nobody has spoken. Just common sense should tell you, you are dominating the space. Give people the chance to speak, and it will help you to protect your own sins. And if you are outgoing and you have to always talk, by all means, learn to ask questions instead of always giving an opinion. Because when you ask questions, you invite other people into the conversation. When you ask questions, you allow other people to speak. But when you are always giving an opinion, you're shutting everybody out. If you are outgoing and you have a strong personality and you always speak your mind, please, these things will help you to reduce the damage that your words can cause. Learn to ask questions. By all means, be yourself, but be wise. Because the scripture says, in the multitude of words, sin will not lack. So if you talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, you will create problems. You will reveal secrets you're not supposed to reveal. You will break confidences you're not supposed to break. You're going to talk about people in ways that will hurt them, and you wouldn't even pause to know that you've hurt somebody because you're constantly speaking. So for those of you who have outgoing personalities, please learn to ask questions a lot more, learn to pause, and learn to give other people the opportunity to be part of the conversation. It helps to protect you yourself. It helps to protect you yourself. The lip of the wise does not speak deceitfully. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 24, put away from you a deceitful mouth and put perverse lips far from you. Wise people don't deceive. They don't give false information. They tell the truth. Truth is the language of wise people. There's an interesting verse in Proverbs 18, verse 6 to 7. It says, a fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. I want to believe you are not that your mouth does not call for blows. You talk, and you get beaten. The next verse 7 says, a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. That's the difference between a fool and a wise man. The wise man's lips give knowledge. The fool's lips invite blows. There are people who leave the house very nicely dressed and return with swollen lips. They were going to work nicely dressed. They return with swollen lips. And it's not just like it happened once in their lifetime. It happens very, very frequently. They leave the house early in the morning, brush their teeth, they are ready for work. And they come with swollen lips because their lips have called for blows. I know you are good. Your lips don't call for blows. But make sure that your lips, your words do not land you into trouble, because the words can land you into trouble. You can't just be careless with what you say, offend everybody, annoy everybody, and incite everybody to fight you. All right. So we've talked about the ear, the heart, the lips. Now let's talk about the eye of the wise. The eye of the wise. The eye of the wise is not greedy for wealth. Proverbs 28:22, a man with an evil eye hastens after riches and does not consider that the poverty will come to him. When you have the eye of the wise, you don't just become greedy. Everything you see, you want it. Everything somebody has, you want. What we desire should be controlled. So you ask yourself, do I control my eyes? If I see somebody has bought something, will I go and buy the same thing? Somebody has a new shoe. Does it mean I should buy a new shoe? Somebody has bought a car. Should I buy the same car? Somebody has some new clothes. Should I have the same clothes? The eye of the wise is not greedy. Don't have a greedy eye where you want what everybody has. That is the mark of unwiseness. The eye of the wise stays focused and alert. The eye of the wise stays focused and alert. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25 to 26. Let your eyes look straight ahead and your eyelids look right before you. Verse 25 to 26. Let your eyes look straight ahead and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. The wise person keeps their eyes focused. They stay focused. They look straight ahead. They look at what is before them, not what is in before other people. They examine their own path. They run their own race. They look at what God has given to them, not what God has given to somebody else. They're not living their lives trying to please other people. They are focused. And God wants us to focus our eyes. It is wisdom to focus your eyes, because in this world you're going to find and see people who have far more than you have, who are doing something very different, and that who are doing something very different. And that doesn't call you to also try and do it. Plan your life, focus your life. Watch the steps you're taking. That is wisdom. The eye of the wise is focused, is not greedy, it stays alert, it sees and spots danger, it sees when things are going wrong, and orders its steps. The eye of the wise. Do you have a wise person's eye? Are you focused? Are you alert? Do you see what other people have and not be tempted to pursue what they have? Is your eye leading you into trouble? I like what Job said, that he had entered. I don't know about women. I'm not a woman, so I can't talk about women. You advise yourself, women. But for the men, a lot of men need covenant with the eyes. That you're going to keep your eyes straight, not look sideways. Straight. It will help you to save you money. You know, before I was married, that was one of my chief verses, to keep covenant with the eyes, that I won't look at a woman straight twice. And I didn't. Not for any reason. If I see a woman like this lady, nice lady here, my wife, before she was my wife, if I see once and my mind says, look again, I say, no. I won't look. I won't look. I'll keep my eye off, because I've made a covenant. I will not look twice. But definitely with her, I looked more than twice. How can we just look once? But since then, I look once. Because it's a covenant. Otherwise, your eye will play tricks on your mind. and then play tricks on your pocket. And play tricks on your choices and decisions. And before you realize, you are doing something so foolish that you yourself know you are being fooled. But your eye has led you. So for a lot of the men, make covenant with your eyes. You're married, keep your eyes on your wife. Don't look anywhere else. And those of you who are not married and you are looking, look with wisdom. But it's important that we don't let our eyes mislead us, because the first temptation in the Garden of Eden involved the eyes of Eve. She saw the fruit, she saw it, and she saw that it was good for food and something to make a person wise, and she took it. If we don't control what we see, our eyes can lead us into a lot of trouble. And it's not just about men and women alone. It's about money, it's about wealth, it's about fame, it's about what people have that we don't have, which makes us so impatient alone. It's about money, it's about wealth, it's about fame, it's about what people have that we don't have, which makes us so impatient in our own spirit to always try to grab. What makes a person steal normally is not because they don't have, but their eyes are worrying them. Their eyes are worrying them. They can live their lives without stealing. What they have is enough. They are surviving, but their eyes worry them. Their eyes worry them. So it's important. The eye of the wise must be controlled. It's not greedy, and the eye of the wise stays focused and alert. Finally, we talk about the face of the wise. How does a wise person's face look like? We've talked about the heart, we've talked about the ears, we've talked about the lips, we've talked about the, what else have we talked about? When somebody sees you, they will say, oh, that's a wise man. Okay, a wise man. Let's see how a wise person's face looks like. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 verse 1. Who is like a wise man, and who knows the interpretation of a thing? A wise man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the sternness of his face is changed. The New International Version says, a wise wisdom brightens a man's face and changes its hard appearance. I'm telling you, poverty can sometimes make your face look very hard. Poverty has a look. How many of you know that? You can see a person, just the face, and say, there's a poor person. You can see poverty has a look. How many of you know that? You can see a person, just the face, and say, there's a poor person. You can see a person, just a face, and you can say, that's a sick person. You can see somebody's face, and you can say, that's a happy person. Not because they are laughing, but you just see the face, and you say, that's a happy face. In the same way, you can see a wise face and a foolish face. There are some people, you look at their face, and you know, this guy doesn't think. You can just see by their face, according to the scripture. I wish I wasn't saying these things, you know, they're in the Bible. So, what is the face of the wise man like? First, it inspires trust and confidence. Look at that verse carefully. It says, who is like a wise man and who knows, carefully, it says, who is like a wise man and who knows the interpretation of a thing? When you see a wise man, you feel confident because you know that he's going to interpret something for you. He's going to solve a problem for you. He's going to make life better for you. So just seeing a wise person inspires trust and confidence. And wise people are very confident because they have exercised themselves to be able to unravel the mysteries of life. They don't look confused, troubled, overwhelmed all the time. They are in charge. They are on top of the issue. They don't look perplexed, anxious, not knowing what to go, where to go, what to do, what's coming next. not being buffeted by life without any clue. The wise person knows how to unravel the mysteries, and you can see it in their face that they're worried. I mean, it happens to us all the time. You have a friend and in the office, and you see him Monday, and you say, what's the problem? What's worrying you? Now, how do you know something's worrying him? His face. And why is something worrying him? He doesn't know how to fix a problem. But when you find somebody who knows how to fix a problem, his face is not hard, according to the scripture. His face is always relaxed because he seems to be in charge and on top and in control all the time. You need to have a wise person's face. Don't let people always ask you, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Is something wrong? Any problem? Home, wife, children? Where is the problem? If people are constantly asking you whether there's something wrong with you, you don't have this face. You have the other one. So the wise person's face is a face of somebody who knows how to solve problems, and it's not hard. They seem confident, they seem on top and in charge. Second thing about the face of the wise man is that it glows with honor and character. One of the things you're going to learn about somebody who is wise is that when you see them, you just feel you shouldn't talk rubbish to them. You just know it. You just see their face, and as we say here, we'll say that his face is heavy. The person's face is heavy. And here, his face is heavy. Heavy. It's not that he's got aluminum, lead in his face or gold, but his face is heavy. When you are talking to him or her, you weigh your words. There are some people that you can't talk things that are not wise to. That's a wise person. Their face shines with honor. There's weight. There's weight in their face. So, if you want to be a wise person, we must see it on your face. So I'm trusting God that after this series, we'll see a lot of wise faces in this church. I mean, you'll be walking through the campus and people will see you and say, wow, you are wise. Because you have a wise face. They look at your ear and they say, wow, you have the ear of a wise. Wow, you have the lips of the wise. Wow, you have the eyes of the wise. And more than everything, you have the heart of a wise man. I pray God helps us to be wise in our heart, in our words, in our ears, in our eyes, and in our face. God bless you. Our face. God bless you.